Hey there, welcome to Blockhead, the podcast where cartoonists talk comics and just about everything else. My name is Geoff Grogan, and I'll be your host for the next hour or so in a series of conversations with comics creators about their lives, their work, and comics. So sit back and enjoy. Hello again, gang. Welcome back to Blockhead. This is a special episode. It's the Year in Review 2023. Just a review of some comics that I picked up this last year that you may or may not have heard of, may have picked up, may have passed by, most of which are done by independent cartoonists. In fact, I think all of them are independent projects, and some of them come from Kickstarter, some of them don't. But I thought, as a way of ending the year, it might be kind of fun just to do a little bit of a review of some of the work that I enjoyed this year that you may not have encountered, and so it might point you in their direction, hopefully, as a way of supporting this medium we love so much, and the independent creators, I think, that are really at the forefront of its health and well-being. Just me today, at the end of the year. There's no guest, just me, so you got to put up with my monologue over the next half hour or so. This is completely off the cuff. I'm just doing this without any notes or without any forethought. So just a stack of comics. So I hope you will bear with me, and I hope you enjoy it. I do hope to get back on track with the podcast in 2024. I've got some ideas, and some of the things, last year, 2023, I guess it's no secret, was a difficult year for me, and that's big part of why I got knocked off track in regard to the podcast. It was just, not possible. Too many things happened, and the biggest one was the passing of my sister, Kathy, who we lost in April, and all my attention was really there and elsewhere, and we've had some other setbacks this year too. So it's and we did not escape December without a loss as well. So it's been a rocky road this year, and I hope you can forgive my absence and the absence of the podcast through all of that. But I do hope that the 2024 is going to be a better year for me personally. I hope it's a good year for you. I'm hoping the best for all of us. And so, with all that out of the way, why don't we start talking comics, and comics that I found fun, interesting, again, through Kickstarter or elsewhere. And so first up is a comic from Kickstarter, and it's from a group of independent cartoonists and writers called Shape Comics, and they're at shapecomics.com. And this book is called Sonic Saturn, and I received at the beginning of 23 a small mini comic version of what is going to be a larger comic. It's called Sonic Saturn Chapter 1 Into the Lion's Heart, and this is 36 pages, this little book. Beautifully printed on newsprint. It's got a really great retro feel. It's filled with Ben-Day dots. Great flat coloring, straight out of the late 50s, early 1960s. It's in my wheelhouse. It's what speaks to me. And it's got this great, maybe early Charlton sci-fi kind of 60s vibe that reminds me of Captain Atom, Steve Ditko's wonderful Charlton comic book from the early 60s. So it's got that vibe. And the story is this space-age hero, Johnny Estrella. It's the year 5005. He's out trying to fix a satellite someplace. His rocket ends up marooned on this alien world that's filled with oversized reptiles and monsters. And it's leading somewhere, but we're not quite sure where. It's only chapter 1, and there's a larger book that is coming out hopefully soon. That was also a Kickstarter at the beginning of 2023, and it's called Sonic Saturn Book 1 in the Court of the Crimson King, and that should be coming out hopefully sometime this year. And that brings Chapter 1 and I suppose a whole pile of follow-ups together in one big anthology format, and I'm looking forward to that. But if you're really interested, if you love retro comics, you love that whole vibe, Sonic Saturn and all of Shape Comics really satisfy that urge, satisfy that itch. You should definitely check it out. It's written by, a guy by the name of Tom Tomorrow, or Tom Morrow, really. His name is Tom Morrow. Okay, and illustrated by Anthony, is that Carranza? I think it's Carranza. So, with a C. And it's terrific. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it for folks who love that kind of retro vibe. So, look into it if you can at shapecomics.com. Second up are two projects that came from the hand of the one and only Dean Haspiel this year, and two terrific projects. COVID Cop, which was his first Kickstarter, I believe, this year, and Billy Dogma and Jane Legit. And both of them were absolutely terrific. Wonderful work from Dean Haspiel, if you're familiar with Dean Haspiel, who's done a lot of mainstream work in the past. And these are his first forays into Kickstarter, as I understand. And he's really going full force into self-publishing. COVID Cop is this great kind of dystopian film noir sci-fi vehicle that is set in a world where the viruses run rampant. And COVID Cop is more or less on a mission, or he's been hired by the government to assassinate those people who are carrying the virus. And so he is the one-man antidote to the virus that's infecting this world. And it's very much like Judge Dredd or Sin City. Dean, in his story, compares it to Mad Max as well. It's a terrific, like I said, film noir-esque piece. Beautiful cartooning by Dean Haspiel, and a terrific story. Great, for those of us who are still recovering from the pandemic, it's a really great expression of our communal kind of anxiety and our wish to overcome, really, by any means possible, the remnants of COVID. Billy Dogma and Jane Legit is an anthology of short stories featuring his signature characters, Jane Legit and Billy Dogma. And it's really, this is a project that is straight from the heart, I think. This is a beautiful book that is really a love story. It's a love poem, if you will, and although it doesn't rhyme. And it's got that same great kind of film noir narrator that Dean uses, and yet I don't even know how to express it. It's about a passionate affair that is both powerful, so powerful that it's also incredibly destructive in its potential. It's both the salvation of these characters, and it's also their ultimate destruction. It's neither or, and it's both. And the stories are visual, literal metaphors rather than straight-ahead narratives. And in this way, they really function like as a kind of comics poetry. And I can't really think of anything off the top of my head to compare it to. Just say that it is a really compelling book, and it just carries you along with the passion that just fills. If you've ever fallen in love madly and passionately and known it was not exactly the best thing for you to be engaged in that moment, but you can't help yourself, because it's so much a part of your chemical response is just something you can't overcome. It embodies that. Its theme is that. It really is a wonderful book, collecting these stories. Some are very short, and I hesitate to call them stories because they're really so much more than that. They're really evocations of this enormous love story. And so you've really, and it's not a love story that is like anything you'll find in traditional romance comics. It's something entirely different, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And you can get both of these books, along with a variety of other things from Dean, at his Etsy store. And just look up Dean Haspiel, one word. That's DeanHaspiel on Etsy. You can get them there. Go there, get them now, because I think these are both limited edition comics, and I highly, highly recommend both of them. So check that out. I just can't say enough about them. Billy Dogma is just, and Jane Legit was just terrific. Just blew me away, and I love COVID Cop, and I can't wait to read more of it. So we'll see. I think Dean's got something coming up again in January. I just got the newsletter, so be looking for that on Kickstarter. Another book that came out this year that I absolutely, absolutely love is from one of my absolute favorite cartoonists in the world right now, and that's Pinko Joe, or Christopher Sporandio, from Rice University. And this book is called, oddly enough, This Year is Next Year's Last Year. And if you like that title, you're going to love his work. If you're not familiar, Pinko Joe's been on the show before, and that was a great episode. And if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that I absolutely love his work, and I love the Pinko Joe series of books. There's 3 books out that tell the story of Pinko Joe. And Chris's work uses a very, very, again, a very retro style to deal with some very contemporary issues. And This Year is Next Year's Last Year is a smaller book. It's like a pocket-sized book. Well, pocket-size, I don't know what you call this. It's digest size. That's the size. That's what I'm looking to say. And it's in his signature style. This kind of recycled is not really the proper word. He takes old comics imagery and puts it through this filter, the Christopher Sporandio filter, and it's like a mashup of older styles and older technology with contemporary technology, and it's got this unique look to it that is it feels as though you're picking up a comic that is really, really old, but has been somehow or another printed really distinctly, and there's kind of smudging, there's fudgy lines, and all this kind of stuff that goes with this look. It's a wonderful, both these books, Pinko Joe, this book, they're all great art objects, and they really come across as great comics art objects. They're not just comics, they're comics as artworks. And the artwork is great throughout, and it partakes of this style that I've talked about, this retro, regurgitated retro style. It's been put through a kind of meat grinder, if you will, and come out the other side being very, very old but very new at the same time. So this book, it's not the continuation of the Pinko Joe story. This is something new. This is really a ghost story, and it's a ghost story that uses a refugee from Casper to tell the story of January 6th and how we got there and how we got out of there. And it does so through very funny, very oblique storytelling that is also, for being something very oblique, is very straightforward. And so it's no holds barred, really, in that regard. Pinko Joe does not mince words when it comes to who's evil and who's good in regards to January 6th and what's going on in our politics. So know that, be warned ahead of time. But I can't recommend this enough. This year is next year's last year. I absolutely love it. I just reread it in preparation for this, and it's even better the second time through. Again, it's a 3 or 4 part ghost story, and it takes us through various stages of developments in the past year, or the past few years, really. From January 6th, it deals with that. It deals with the rise of Christo-fascism. It also the combination or the meeting of Christianity and fascism through the evangelical movements, etc. It deals with Roe v. Wade and the fallout from that. So it's a really topical book, but it's funny. It is hard-hitting, it's wise, it's wise ass, and it's really terrific. So you've got to check it out, pinkojoe.com. You can pick up Christopher Sprandio's work there. And again, love it. Absolutely love his work, and I can't wait for whatever happens next, Pinko Joe World. And you can follow him on Instagram at pinko_Joe. Next on my list is this terrific set of comics that are coming from a guy by the name of Kurt Burdick, Kirtburdick. And I was turned on to this, as many were, via Cartoonist Kayfabe, of course. Yes, I watch it too, and that's where I learned about this. And of course, it's, as you may or may not know, it's a retelling, very idiosyncratic retelling of what is ostensibly the death of Superman, the great battle that leads to the death of Superman. For those comics, those of you who remember those comics from the 90s, back in the day, I can't believe it's been that long since the death of Superman. But these are a no-holds-barred approach to that story, and he goes places that the DC Comics never could go. What's great about these works is it's not just the no-holds-barred approach to violence and I hesitate to call it eroticism or sexuality. There is that throughout the comic, but it's not really titillating in the way of eroticism. It's something else entirely. And the books are the approach to the work visually, and they're silent comics for the most part, except for sound effects. It's from the point of view of art comics, if you remember the use of that term, which is something I'm really familiar with because I dealt in about 10 years ago or so, did a bunch of art comics of my own. These emphasize the visuals over, I don't want to say over storytelling because the story's still there, but they really emphasize the visual and the visual approach to storytelling, obviously, because there's no word balloons, no text throughout. And a lot of it is just flat color, really graphic rendering, beautifully realized, like pop art paintings of this enormously violent battle that the superheroes engaged in with this monster. And it treats violence like the basis for these extraordinary pop art paintings, really. It's like Death of Superman by Andy Warhol, via Johnny Craig and Bernie Wrightston, all mixed in together, really. It's really powerful stuff, and it's bright, beautiful colors belie the enormous and visceral graphic violence that runs throughout. And this is not an endorsement of graphic violence. It's just an endorsement of comics that really, in their illustrations of violence, it's like a meta approach to violent comics. It's kind of violent comics that talk about the depiction of violence in comics, if you know what I mean by that. There's this double-edged sword. It's not violence for violence sake. It's violence that is used as a vehicle for discussing or referencing the violence of superhero comics in general and the implications therein. And I find something really powerful in the combination of these bold, bright colors with these, gross images, really, powerful, visceral images that are very, very graphic and explicit in a lot of ways. But at the same time, they're being delivered through these, these candy-colored images. And so the illustration, you have to kind of take it and understand that the illustrations are really referencing the nature of violence in comics. And very smart work, very interesting, very powerful stuff. And I highly recommend Death of Power by Kurt Burdick. And number 3, I think, was out on Kickstarter also. I don't know if there's I think it's a 3-issue series. The books are 8.5 by 11, I think, is the size. And So they're oversized books, and as they should be, really. And I think, again, it's 3 issues. I think it's 3 issues only. I'm not sure if you can get them anyplace else other than Kickstarter, but they are amazing. So definitely look into this if you can. It's a very powerful comics experience. Then I just got in the mail this book the other day. Again, I think came to my attention via Cartoonist Kayfabe. Bootleg Spider-Man, which is really pretty cool. Comes from Superhero Comics, and this was originally printed in November 2022. Its 3rd printing is in December 2023, so it's hot. This issue that I just got is hot off the presses, and it's a lot of fun. It's like Kurt Burdick's work. This is the kind of Spider-Man story you really want to see, that's never been done, and it's in black and white for the most part. There's a little bit of color within it. Again, it too is an oversized book. It's again 8.5 by 11, and it's got a great fanzine feel to it. Really, it's got that old Xerox quality to it, particularly in the front cover. The imagery feels like it's been put through that kind of too many printings of Xeroxes that used to happen when you'd be working on a Xerox machine, trying to do a big number of zines from on the photocopier. It's got that kind of vibe to it, and it's really, again, very vital, very energetic. The artwork is very, what it lacks in finesse, it makes up for in passion and in expressive quality. And again, so it's a lot of fun, and it's just unlike anything that's out there right now in regard to Spider-Man. So I think you'd really dig it. Check it out. Superhero Comics at superherocomics.com. That's one word, superherocomics.com. Well, let's see now. What else have we got over here in our big stocking, our Christmas stocking? We've got True Crime Funnies from Jim Rugg. And Jim, of course, always offers terrific work, and this book is also no less one of those terrific comics. It is 2 stories within this comic. First is sort of a detective drug story. It's and it's in full color. Got a retro feel, as sometimes Jim's work does. And it's just great classic film noir with a little tongue-in-cheek. And then it's followed up by a terrific black and white story that's set in the 1890s in the Yukon, and it's a bit of a wrestling story, which is a lot of fun too. Again, beautifully illustrated by Jim, and his inks are wonderful. It's wonderful to see his work in black and white in the last story. And because he's done some of the cartooning with marker, so you get this wonderful variation in some of his solid blacks that is really just so nice, very painterly. Terrific, beautiful book, a lot of fun, and highly recommend it. You can find that at jimrugg.com. Well, Jay Stevens' wonderful Dwellings series. Jay's been on the podcast before, so you know about Dwellings. Wrapped up its 6-issue run this last year, and it's moved over to anthologies at Oni Press, where you can pick it up there if you've never bought it before. But it's great work. It's a cartoonist working at the top of his game all the way through. Dwellings is just a real tour de force from Jay Stevens, and I can't, it's horror comics through a Harvey Comics lens, and that kind of combination, that mashup really between the two, makes for some terrific comics. So I'd look into that. If you haven't had a chance to get Dwellings, you weren't there for any of the Kickstarters, you can get it from Oni Press now, and I think there's an even bigger anthology of the work coming out in the new year. So look for Jay Stevens' Dwellings in hardcover format, I believe, in 2024. That'll be on Amazon. I think you can pre-order it on Amazon now, so check it out. Be sure to look for that. Another book that came out this year that I think is really exciting and a lot of fun in a much more traditional comic strip style is my good friend Pat Sandy's book, which Block Party, which came out this year, and it's the second in the Next Door Neighbors comic strip collection. And Pat was on the show just recently, so you should know all about the book there, but it is a laugh riot. Every page is really hilarious, and I highly recommend Block Party by Pat Sandy. And then finally, great friend of the show, Lex Fajardo, had new work that came out this last year. Kid Beowulf, Songs and Sagas. I just got that in the mail, and that is a great anthology of short stories. Kid Beowulf short stories that are just so... and I just started reading this, but they are as lively and filled with adventure and humor as Kid Beowulf always is. And if you love that kind of Asterix approach to adventure comics, that famous old comic, from France, Asterix. If you love that approach, you're going to love Kid Beowulf. They are really wonderful stories for all ages. Speaking of that, Lex did come out with a children's book a year or so ago called Ham of the Pig's Big Adventure, which is a terrific, beautiful children's book, and I highly recommend it. It's really a wonderful book. You can go to kidbeowulf.com. That's KIDBEOWULF.com to check it out. There's actually you can even get a plush toy of Ham of the Pig, which is just so wonderful. I love it. And I love that book. I think it might be my favorite so far of the Kid Beowulf stories. It's so bright and so colorful, and the artwork is great, and it really is just, there's this beautiful meeting of Lex's approach to comics and that story. And so I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And all the Kid Beowulf books are just terrific, and they're all available at kidbeowulf.com. Well, that is a lot of stuff to go over in 25 minutes or so, 20 minutes or whatever. I have been busy myself as well. I'm hard at work at a variety of things. But last year, I put out a book called Captain Daiquiri Jones and the Space Rockettes. And this was on Kickstarter, and it was a successful Kickstarter. It's also available on my Etsy shop, which is, what the heck is the title of my Etsy shop? It's not Jeff Grogan. It's Comics Print Works. That's the name of the shop on Etsy. Comics Print Works. That's one word. And you can get a variety of stuff from me there. And at Etsy. What is it? Etsy.com/shop/comicsprintworks, one word. And Daiquiri Jones is, again, I guess this is a new thing, man, the 8.5 by 11 book. It also is 8.5 and 11. It's Golden Age size. And it is ostensibly, it is a reprinting of a book from the early 1950s from a company called the Have a Banana Comics Company. And it is part of a thing called the Have a Banana Research Project, which is an endeavor that brings together a lot of work from the history of this, unsung comics company from the 20th century. Was there at the beginning of the comics era, along with DC and Marvel. It was originally a pulp publisher and became a comics publisher. And Captain Daiquiri Jones and the Space Rockettes is from the early 1950s. Was originally a pulp hero. Strangely enough, this particular issue, which was number 9 of Captain Daiquiri Jones, somehow or another seems to channel some contemporary political issues as well. So very interesting. Anyway, it features 2 stories, Captain Daiquiri Jones and Vicky Venus Teenage Alien, which is a kind of alien on Earth story, like My Favorite Martian, through an Archie Comics kind of lens. Anyway, I'm pretty proud of that comic. It was a lot of fun to put together and put out. I'm hoping to do something similar this year. follow up, because that story of the Have a Banana Comics Company goes on. There's a lot to it, and so more will be coming from them in the new year. Speaking of that, I've also got a Kickstarter going right now as part of Kickstarter's Make 100 campaign. I wasn't going to do anything, but I had this stuff laying around, some work that I was doing without any thought to publishing it or printing it. I've been doing this political satire, a series of strips on my Instagram account, and I wasn't going to do anything with them, but this Make 100 thing came up at Kickstarter, and I thought, well, this is an opportunity to put some of that stuff out there in the world in print. And so I'm going to do a tabloid newspaper that'll be about 20 pages long, and it features this series of comics that are called Donut and the Cheeseburger, the Race for the White House 2024. And it is a satire of our current political situation and the race for the White House between President Donut and the maniacal former President Cheeseburger. And if that sounds of interest to you, then definitely check out the Kickstarter, which begins January 2nd. Right after New Year's, January 2nd, and runs for 30 days. And there are only 100 copies of this comic that will be made available. And then that'll be it. No more. It is so I'm excited about it because it's fun to do newsprint again. Because these are fun comics, because they're very topical and very timely. And what else can a cartoonist do when the fate of the entire republic is on the line but do comics? And so this is my foray, my contribution to that, if you will. And full disclosure, I'm a big I love donuts in all varieties, and I don't eat meat. So that sort of tells you where it's all coming from before you invest your time. So again, that is on Kickstarter beginning January 2nd. You can head on over to my Instagram right now at greenscreencomic, and you can go to the link in the bio, and you can follow and be notified when the project launches. If you follow that link on my Instagram at greenscreencomic, that will take you right there to the Kickstarter, and it'll if you follow the project, you'll be notified on the launch. So again, you can get my work. You can get copies of Daiquiri Jones. You can get my Plastic Baby Heads complete collection. You can get some prints and other things at Comics Print Work on Etsy. Comics Print Works, rather, on Etsy. And you can pick up, again, a variety of other things as well. And go to Kickstarter and check out my new Make 100 project, which is, I think, a lot of fun. And it should come out sometime in the middle of the new year. And if it goes well, I'll do a second issue of it that covers the entirety, the last half of the campaign for the White House. And that's assuming that, we'll still have freedom of the press when it comes, when January of 2025 comes around. So until then, until the new year, and until Blockhead comes back, I wish you well, and I wish you a happy new year wherever you are. And I hope 2023 was good for you, and I hope 2024 is as wonderful as you want it to be wherever you are. And that'll do it for now. I hope to be back really soon with a guest talking comics as usual, and hopefully that'll be soon. So until then, be well, be healthy, and as always, thanks for listening.